This is Dolany TV, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel this fine Sunday. Hey, you believe it? We made it all the way to Sunday once again. Now we find ourselves with some time to discuss the Oilers. Another grim day in Oilers news as, we've set into this deep, dark, cold off season. There's not much going on. Anything coming out from anyone is speculative or even straight up guesses at best at this point. But I've got one thing that we should all be speculating about going into the 2020-21 NHL season, because this is potentially something that will make a lot of Oilers fans feel better about darker years behind us. Circa maybe 2014, 2015, and a trade that still stings to this day, but may sting a heck of a lot less in the coming year, depending on how the Oilers' defense shapes up. Now, obviously, that sounds complicated. Tyson, what are you getting at that you're talking about a trade from 2015 that's going to influence our defense and how it shapes up, and if it shapes up good, then all of a sudden we win a trade from 2015 just magically in 2021. Well, may I remind you that there was a trade we did for a defenseman to another Canadian team in 2015. You getting where I'm going here? In which we got some draft picks back. And the second round draft pick in that trade is completely bum useless, and I'll explain that when you see the screen grab I have prepared for you in a moment. However, the fourth round pick from 2015, now I've done and gone and given it away, is very important to everything I am about to talk about. So, without further ado, let's talk about it. In 2015, March 2nd, yes, this was before Peter Chiarelli was hired, Jeff Petry was traded to the Montreal Canadiens for a second round pick in 2015. I'll explain where that went in a moment. And a 2015 fourth round pick that the Oilers used to select Caleb Jones. Do you see my link now? Do you get where I'm going? We'll discuss that in a moment. But first, we have to discuss why this trade is not going to be a win for the Oilers based on that second round pick. You see, it's Jonas Segerhalter. That's a Washington Capitals player prospect currently right now. But the situation with that is the trade tree went with a third round and a seventh round pick for Cam Talbot and a seventh round pick. Seventh round pick went nowhere. Cam Talbot went for Anthony Stolarz, and that was the end of that. However, the Oilers did make the playoffs in a season with Cam Talbot. So second round playoff, game 7. Maybe it's not all bad if the guy could have stopped the first shot of every hockey game he played in 18-19. That's it. Caleb Jones is how we get to the Oilers going out there and winning a trade from more than 5 years ago by playing Caleb Jones on the defense this year. Jones has had a pretty good little development curve here within the Oilers. He's gone on from years with the Portland Winterhawks to the Bakersfield Condors in 17-18 to finding himself in 17 games, not even being able to celebrate his first goal in the NHL because the Oilers were losing like 7-0 or 7-1 when he scored it. 6 points in 17 games, 29 points in 50 games with the Condors in 18-19, and then the hot start in Bakersfield, 11 points in 14 games that found him back up with the Oilers 43 games deep by the end of the season, 9 points, only a -1 on the clock, and his first 2 games of playoff experience as well. So now you've got Caleb Jones, who's primed to break into the Oilers' top 4 almost by default, right? If you're me, or if you're you, and you don't want to see the Oilers rush Philip Broberg, if you don't want to see the Oilers put Dmitry Samorukov into a situation that may be way above his head at this point for a guy that's never had playoff or NHL experience, the only logical guy to fill the hole left side, second pair or 1A, 1B pair for the Oilers is Caleb Jones. And I mean, honestly, the The hockey pedigree is there within the family for being a top 4 D-man. Seth Jones, do I need to remind you that? Yeah. Okay, you're reminded. Good to go. So, all of a sudden, you allow Caleb Jones the opportunity to play in the top 4, and suddenly, yeah, if he swims, if he goes out there and succeeds, and he gets the job done, and he really puts up some numbers, he really puts things up well, and the Oilers win, well, guess what? Caleb Jones might just 5 years later win the Edmonton Oilers at 23 years old the Jeff Petry trade. Because, right, you talk about the Cam Talbot stuff. Okay, you know what? That's all right. We get a little win there. Yeah, we got a playoff year, second round. Okay, we got somewhere. But now all of a sudden you talk about having Caleb Jones become a bona fide top 4 NHL option, and suddenly, yeah, there is a lot of win in the Jeff Petry trade for the Edmonton Oilers all these years later. A little bit of patience pays off the long way home. So look at it this way, is I'll get this for you. 43 games, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points for Caleb Jones this year. Only 10 penalty minutes in 43 games, a power play assist, a game-winning goal, and of course you have to keep this in mind as well, a shooting percentage of 10.5. Do I expect a D-man to have that high of a shooting percentage? No, but only on 38 shots in 43 games. In the top 4, he'll be shooting the puck 2 or 3 times a game, and if you even shoot 5%, I'm taking that all day. 79 total shot attempts, so the guy struggles to get the puck on net. That's only a 50% on net ratio. And then you've got 14.08 time on ice. So this is where it gets big for Caleb Jones, a guy that throws a hit per game. Gave away the puck less than 30 times this season, which is way less than a time a game, and had 8 takeaways, 46 blocks, so a block a game. Caleb Jones, those numbers that I just read you sound like top 4 D-man kind of ratio numbers, right? We're not talking those are top 4 D-man numbers, but if those kind of numbers stay in check compared to games played, points produced, shooting percentage, and all that, well, suddenly that's a bona fide top 4 D-man. And I don't think back when we ended up trading a second round pick or getting a second round pick and a fourth round pick for trading Jeff Petry, you could have said that that fourth round pick alone, potentially 5 years, 6 years down the road, could make or break the deal for the Edmonton Oilers. And that's what it is looking like is going to happen this year if Caleb Jones finds himself in a top 4 role. The Oilers could very easily go out here and win this trade in 2021. And that's weird, right? Because Jeff Petry's a 40-plus point defenseman the past 3 years. He's a guy that's now getting paid $6.25 on his next contract. This is a big part of the Montreal Canadiens defense, but it almost comes down to who ends up being the bigger part this year and moving forward. Jeff Petry, who's aging by the day, Caleb Jones, who's just now getting started at the NHL level. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But you know what? End of the day, look at that return for Jeff Petry. Caleb Jones, if he goes where he's supposed to go this season, it's going to be a heck of a return just on that alone. But the other draft pick that Montreal gave up, their spot, ends up being Jonas Segerhalter as well, who's, from what I've seen, pretty loved in Washington. Could be very interesting to watch 2 guys who got their career spawned out of a Jeff Petry trade to the Montreal Canadiens for years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tyson. This is Stolney TV. What I need you to do for me right now is, do you want me to look back at these kind of things and go over how every moving piece works? I know a lot of these trade trees have being popularized by Steve Dangle and Sportsnet, but I am sitting here telling you, this is something we can do to cover time for us as Edmonton Oilers fans right now. So let me know in the comments section down below. If you're new to the channel and this educated you a little bit on how we got Caleb Jones, a little bit on what happened with Jeff Petry, and a little bit on how the Edmonton Oilers could go out there and win this trade 6 years later, well, maybe thinking about hit that subscribe button and sticking along to see if this ends up happening. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tyson, this is Stolen TV. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. This is one I've been brewing for about 2 or 3 days. I don't usually get that passionate about videos unless it's something I'm very angry about, but passionate because this is something I thought would be very impactful. Ladies and gentlemen, I am up on out of here.